Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, it's CrazyIvan here, back with a video talking about something that I'm hoping that a few of you are going to be quite excited about. It's a new update to our community patch, which we have released now. And I just wanted to make this video to sort of go over the thought processes of a lot of the changes in the community patch, just so you sort of know what's going on in the background. A lot of the changes have been taken from feedback we've received, specifically from the Earth to Iron tournament that happened way back in sort of May, June, July earlier this year, as well as some other feedback that we've had around the game as well, and as well as some changes for a few civs and stuff that we've done based on some of the sort of statistics that we have from pick and ban rates of certain civs and just like how effective we've been seeing units be in tournament gameplay and stuff like that. Obviously, we did have the bit of a hiccup early in the year, sort of around, I think it was August, September time, where there was the bug in AoE2 where data mods weren't working properly, which has unfortunately had quite a negative impact on the play for the community patch. But we're hoping with this new release that we'll get a bit more interest again over the sort of the winter holidays and into the new year as well, and possibly we'll have some more events going into the next year as well. So enough of introduction, let's get into the patch notes themselves. I've just got Carver's list of changes here. We're going to have a link to the mod for anyone who wants to download it. So this is a list of all the changes that are currently in the patch. This includes all the old changes as well, so I'm not going to go through all of these. I'm going to skip down to the changelog section, so just the new changes that we've made for the current version of the patch. I do have my old video talking about the changes from the last patch, which is actually on my own YouTube channel. We're going to put this on the community channel and put videos on there from now on. Maybe I'll ask Carver to put a link in there if you do want to see the last changes we did. Yes, so anyway, to go into it, so one of the major bits of feedback we had from the Earth to Iron tournament, and even before then as well, actually from a few players, is a lot of people were concerned that the axes weren't really doing what they needed to do. So a big part of the community patch has actually been like stopping early axe rushes from like finishing the game on the spot, but then it's obviously a fine balancing act between like that happening and then also the axes becoming completely useless if you nerf them into the ground. We did see quite a few occasions in the Earth to Iron tournament where early axe rushes seem to be fairly ineffective, so we have decided to like pull back some of the nerfs that we have done to the axer. So just a couple of quick changes here. Battle Axe tech is now being reverted to its original 40 seconds, and the leather armor tech, so just the melee armor text in the tool age, are being reduced down to 40 seconds. This is still up from the original 30. We don't want to go all the way down to the original 30 again, because just this armor tech for infantry is so impactful in the early tool age. But this does mean like that axe rush is going to come in at least an extra 5 seconds quicker, and there's going to be a couple more changes that affect this that we'll get to further in the patch. So I'll get there. I'll just move on quickly, so I'm not talking too long about that. So stone mining. This change is just a small one. We're just changing the stone cost to wood instead. We felt this matches more with the rest of the market, since like gold mining doesn't cost gold to upgrade. And one of the things we were finding was a lot of people towards the end of Earth to Iron were building a defensive watchtower, and then that's all of your stone gone, and then it makes it quite difficult to then get the stone mining tech if you then want to like invest in further towers or walls or slingers or whatever. So this tech is just going to make this, this change is going to just make this tech a little bit more accessible. And for those that are concerned about this overly buffing the Slinger, we have done some major changes to the Slinger, which I'll get to in a minute, where I don't think this is going to be too much of a problem there. Next section here, the wheel. So this isn't actually a change to the wheel as of this patch. Last patch we did make it so the wheel made it so instead of being a 60% increase to villagers, it was a 40% increase on top of the 10% that we added in tool age. It's noted a little further down, but I'm just going to say it now. We have removed this plus 10% in the tool age because, again, to just talk about the axe thing, we felt that was having too much of an impact there. This change makes it so that villagers can outrun Axeman. And as I was casting multiple games in the Earth to Iron tournament, there was many occasions where a single villager was maybe looked like it was going to be caught out by axes and then just literally just like walked away, like a villager that was like building walls off the side of the base. The axes just can't catch up to them. So we've got rid of this. So what this changes, all this actually is, instead of wheel giving 40% on top of the 10, it now just gives it 50 by itself. So with wheel in, it's going to be the same as the 1.4 patch change that we had. These values are just some villager values, so you can have a look at those if you want. The next change is sort of quite a big part of this patch is that we've been trying to push the swordsman line as a bit more of a desirable unit for more civilizations that aren't just the Chosen and the Roman. We haven't had any like sort of direct buffs to those units, but we've got a few civ changes where there's going to be a few more techs and bonuses that affect that line to encourage people to use that more. So one thing we did add in a few, I think, I can't remember exactly which community patch update it was, but we did give legionaries a plus 5% movement speed. This has now been removed, but instead we've changed logistics to now include a swordsman line increase of plus 10% movement speed. So you are going to get a slightly bigger movement speed buff on all the swordsman line units now, but then obviously it's going to be behind this cost. We have slightly increased the cost of logistics to make up for this, and it's still going to have its old effect there. Just to talk about logistics specifically, this tech was a little bit of a bait, a little bit of like a noob trap, if you want to call it that, in the Bronze Age, because in basically all cases, it's basically always better to get urbanization before logistics. I did see in a few games some people get this straight away in Bronze Age, but urbanization doubles your pop space for basically all your pop, whereas this only halves barracks units. So this was actually better to get in like the Iron Age, where like pop cap was actually more of an issue. This way, the tech is now a bit more desirable to actually have in the Bronze Age, where it is researchable there. And yeah, we're hoping that that's going to mean that we see the swordsman line a little bit more from more civilizations and more games. So yeah, the villager change here, like I said, just in this wheel section, we have removed this. Oopsie daisy. Let me just do that again. I'll stick to doing the bar on the side here. I don't want to try like spoil the next things, but anyway. Yeah, so the 10% change, we have removed this. The major reason for this, again, like I said, is if it felt like too much of a nerf to axes. It's outside of that, it basically has no real impact. This 10% movement speed, if you get villagers get caught out of bowmen, it's basically just that's a question of whether or not you notice in time 9 times out of 10. So it doesn't really help there. It's basically just to help those axes be a little bit more effective into villagers in the early game. We have in the community patch, we have the needlework we've added in, and obviously in Return of Rome you can garrison villagers in towers or town centers. That's the one. So this feels entirely unnecessary. I said in my last video that I was against this change, and it was shown in the Earth to Iron tournament. This was too much of a change and very negatively affected how axes performed in the game. So onto the Slinger section. So this is something I just alluded to a second ago. This cost change here is something that was already in the patch. It's just here for completion's sake. The major change here is that we've increased the range of the unit from 4 to 5, as well as the line of sight to match that, which now means the Slinger will match the bowman's range. We've again in the last games of the Earth to Iron tournament, we found that like the top players were simply just able to mass up bows and then just out micro Slinger units. And obviously the Slinger is meant to be a counter to the bowman. So this is going to obviously mean they're going to be matching that range now, so they're going to be much more effective. To balance out this change, just so the Slinger isn't getting too much more powerful, we're also reducing the base damage from 2 to 1. That was the other thing about the Slinger, is like it wasn't really doing the job it was supposed to do of countering archers, and because of its base damage of 2, when stone mining is in, that 3 damage actually meant it was kind of actually generically decent against pretty much everything, which is it means it wasn't doing the thing it was meant to be doing, and it was doing something that it wasn't meant to be doing. So yeah, we've lowered that. So that means even with stone mining in now, the Slinger will only do 1 damage to axes or scouts because they have 1 base pierce armor. The tech is still going to be worth getting for Slinger because it still gives the +1 range, obviously, and the +1 damage is still going to mean you do more damage against villagers, bows, and buildings and stuff that don't have any pierce armor. We've not changed the bonus damage because the +1 range by itself is already a very big buff to the unit, and for walls and towers specifically, the base damage change actually makes no difference because all the damage you do to those is just the base damage already anyway, so it actually makes no difference. There is a bit of gates are a little bit of an exception to that, so we have made a change to that further on. But yeah, so like, just to summarize this change, it's basically the Slinger is going to be much better against the Bowman and much worse against everything else, and should be more in line of what like the unit's actually supposed to be doing. Next change is a fairly big one, I'd say. Chariot Archers, we've decided to finally hit those a little bit on the head, base range down from 7 to 6. In a lot of cases, I don't think this is actually going to make much of a difference because obviously the Chariot Archer is a very mobile unit, so range is like not that big of a thing. I think the major thing here is obviously now the composite bowmen are now going to be able to outrange Chariot Archers, so that unit's going to be a much better counter unit to Chariot Archers. But yeah, obviously we know the Chariot Archer is a very powerful unit. Obviously there's quite a few civs that have bonuses to Chariot Archers which stand out. But then there's civs like Shang, for example, that have no bonus to directly affect the Chariot Archer, but it's still like a go-to unit for the civ. So yeah, we're just hoping that this will sort of slightly curb the power of the Chariot Archer. We're just going to see how that goes for now, and it'll be interesting to see how much of effect that does. I'm kind of hoping that it does mean that the composite bowman gets played a little bit more often, but yeah, we'll see how that pans out in games. So this next section, new units. So we're not actually adding a new unit here. So this is just a change to a new unit that we added into the previous patch. So this is the Horseman, which is the upgrade to the Scout. So we're just reducing the food cost from 1200 to 900 there, just because we felt like this was a little bit too much of a cost for given the power of the Horseman unit. And potentially this is still a little bit too high. The Horseman, as I said in the last video, is actually, loses 1 versus 1 against the Bronze Age Chariot. But obviously the bonus of the Horseman is it only costs food, so it is much more spammable in the late game. So it still needs like a decent cost, I'd say. We're going to put it at this value for now and see how that works. This is sort of a difficult thing to judge because the Horseman, like in the F to Iron tournament, there was I think there wasn't really any games. I think there was maybe like one game where KT played. Well, I think it was actually the heavy camel he used. But yeah, we didn't really see any of the new units because obviously the Iron Age isn't something that gets reached a lot in tournament 1v1 games. But yes, so buildings. First up, the barracks. We have tried to make the Axer itself a bit more effective, but we were a little bit afraid that with the Slinger change and the Axer changes, the Axe rush into Slinger follow up was going to be a little bit too strong. And we felt that it felt more fair for the barracks to be on the same level as in terms of cost as the archery range and stable, which both cost 150 wood. Because obviously it's just much cheaper to just like spam 2 or 3 barracks, and if your opponent wants to counter with scouts or bows, they're having to invest more in those buildings to get those down, as well as having to build a barracks to even lock them in the first place. So we felt that this was a fair change there. Next up, so this small medium fortified gates. This was something I was alluding to in the Slinger section, because the small gate in particular only has 1 pierce armor. This means that the reduction in Slinger damage would affect the damage to that gate. So we've given the armor class 13, which is basically just like the fortified buildings armor class. Specifically for gates has been changed from 0 to -1. And so again, what this is doing is meaning that the slingers will just do the same damage now as they did before against gates. There is a slight side effect that things like stone throwers will now do a very slight amount more damage to the gate there, but for the stone throwers, because their bonus against this armor class is so much bigger, the relative effect is very small and doesn't really actually make much of a difference. Okay, so now onto some civilization changes. So here what the major thing was, we want to just like knock down some of the top performing civs on certain maps. Again, that we were seeing from the data we had from our tournament civ picks and bans, etc. And so we want to knock a few of those on the head, as well as improve some of those civs that were basically not getting picked at all, and make those maybe a little bit more desirable there. So yeah, so first up, the Assyrians. So we've only done 2 minor changes here. I guess some people could argue this heavy horses archer is a bigger change. We just felt that at the moment, well, to be honest, as people know, I'm not a huge fan of the Assyrians, so maybe I think that at some point in the future we might need to have a bit more of a look at this. But we didn't want to change too many things at once here. But there isn't really like a power unit the Assyrians has in the late game. They have their good siege, which is cheaper to upgrade, of course, but they don't really have like they don't get Scythe Chariot, then they don't get like the heavy horse archer or whatever. And so their regular horse archer, even with the extra attack speed bonus, ends up just feeling inferior to horse archers of other civs because Assyrians are just capped at horse archer and they don't get nobility and they just feel like too much, too easy to counter really. Bronze Shield that's being added in basically because Assyrians do have the Legionary, but it doesn't feel very good to go for the Legionary when they don't get any Pierce armor upgrades. So we're just adding that in just so that the infantry feels a little bit more desirable to go for the Assyrians there. This does help their Hoplite in Bronze Age as well, but the Assyrians don't get Phalangite in Iron Age. So we just felt like this would be a small buff to help them out there and encourage them to use that infantry line that they already have in their tech tree. This is going to be something that we will monitor closely to see if this does get out of hand. We can always take that back if needs be. And okay, so Babylonians, we made quite a few changes to Babylonians here. I said in my last video when I did a tier list that I quite like the Babylonians, but I feel like they're just a bit objectively just a little bit too weak in the earlier phases of the game. So we've tried to sort of give them a few extra bonuses there and to help them just slightly throughout the game as well. So we're given a new bonus, which is City Watch for free. A lot of players don't actually ever get this tech, but for players that do like to get that tech, this is obviously quite good because it means, as well as saving the small amount of resources that City Watch costs, you're actually saving the town centre time, which is quite important because obviously usually wanting to use that for villager production. So just a nice bonus for like the defense that helps out the defensive nature that the Babylonians are supposed to have, right? So we changed the market tech bonus to also apply to the granary now. This excludes the ballista tower because we felt like because the ballista tower cost is so expensive, we thought that it would be too strong of a bonus to add in straight away. Ballista tower cost was something we have discussed before and we haven't kind of really ever got back around to it. Maybe that is something we will look at again in the future, but we'll just put that to one side now. But yeah, that means that the Babylonians, obviously, they're always wanting to put their towers and walls down anyway. So that's just going to give them a little bit more access. To just put some numbers on this, in the tool age, it just means you're going to be saving an extra potential 30 food, because it's only 50 food for each of the watchtower and small wall upgrades. So not like a massive increase, but just it frees up a little bit more food for those upgrades you're usually wanting it to get to the Babylonians anyway. We have slightly reduced the walls and towers bonus to compensate for just the fact that these upgrades are going to be easier to get to. But overall, this is going to be a slight improvement to Babylonians in the early game, as well as some small bonuses like, I think I did the numbers. Yeah, it's like just over the whole game, it's about an extra 400 resources saved. But that's not all at once. That's spread out over the whole game. So not a huge increase, but just something a little extra for the Babylonians. So as well as this, Iron Shield has been added in. So again, a bit like the Assyrians, Babylonians are another civ that have access to the Legionary. So that we're not giving them Tower Shield. We don't want to just like give everyone everything. But again, it's just a little bit more encouragement to maybe use that line if you want to do that. Because a lot of the time, Babylonians just go like Scythe Chariot in the late game, and you don't really see much of the rest of their unit roster. Choson, we've done a couple of tweaks to those. We didn't really like the +2 range for towers applying straight away in the tool age because it feels like it's a bit of a cheesy update. Not update. What do I mean? What's the word I'm looking for? Bonus. That's the word. So we've now split this so this comes in stages in Bronze Age and Iron Age. So this is a nerf, obviously, to Choson. So to make up for this a bit, we've given the Watchtower tech as a free bonus for the civilization now. So those towers aren't going to be as strong in the tool age, but you're going to save a bit of resources and hopefully then our chosen players will still feel like they can build those watchtowers and stuff. I guess it does technically save the small research time. I think it's only 10 seconds for watchtowers, so it's not that much, but it saves you that little bit of time as well, so you can get those watchtowers down straight away, and those will just upgrade automatically. Well, their range will upgrade automatically as you age up. Another quick bonus, late game bonus, but Chosen have the bonus for cheaper storage pit techs, but the only Iron Age storage pit tech they actually get is metallurgy. So we wanted to sort of like lean into that bonus a bit more, as well as the fact that Chosen do get access to the cataphract. So we wanted to give them that tech. So again, to encourage the Chosen to use potentially a different unit, not just the legionary. Maybe they'll have a look at using that cataphract unit as well. And yeah, that again will benefit from the storage pit tech there. So the Hittites, so this is quite a big change here. But we felt, based on many games past and that changes that have had to be made to the game to keep this in check, we have removed the +1 attack bonus to archers for the Hittites. This change has been causing problems all over the shop, basically since the beginning of Return of Rome. The Slinger had to be buffed to have its pierce armor. In fact, I did miss that bonus change. So yeah, we have actually reduced the pierce armor of the Slinger from 3 to 2. The only reason it was at 3 was so that the Slinger could actually counter Hittite bowmen, because obviously bowmen only do 3 damage normally, so 2 pierce armor obviously just cancels that out down to 1. The 3 was literally only there so you could counter Hittite bowmen. So with that bonus gone, we've reverted that to 2 there. So sorry for missing out of that. Just to get back to here. But yeah, so that change had to be made to the Slingers just to deal with this. In Bronze Age, this bonus meant that the Hittite Chariot Archers were doing double damage compared to every other Chariot Archer against Stone Throwers. So Stone Throwers just felt completely useless for every other civ against the Hittites, which is... some people call it a counter to Chariot Archers. I think it's a soft counter, just because Chariot Archers, if you're paying attention, you've got the mobility to avoid those shots there. But yeah, against the Hittites, it just wasn't really an option at all. So yeah, we've changed this bonus. So instead, all archers are going to receive a discount. So the Hittites don't really have an eco bonus at all. Well, they just don't. They do get the cheap wheel, but that's not really an eco bonus. So hopefully this will help them out a little bit to counteract this. So it's going to be minus 10% cost for bowmen in the tool age there, which isn't a massive saving. It's like 4 food and 2 wood. So if you build multiple bowmen, obviously that stacks up quite quickly. But obviously this goes up to 20% in the Iron Age. So those elephant archers and heavier horse archers are going to be a lot cheaper. This may be something we need to look out for, because obviously those are quite powerful units in the late game there. And so maybe that was something that we'll have to reel in. But again, that's an Iron Age change, so we're just going to keep tabs on that for now and see how that goes. This change here, so we're just reverting back to the default balance. We did initially nerf the wheel bonus so that the research time was a little bit slower. It was 15 seconds longer. There was a lot of times, especially on Inside Out, in Earth to Iron. In fact, Hittites lost every single game they were played on Inside Out. From the stats I have, well, I saw all the games, that is just the case. And that 15 seconds actually, I think, was a major contributing factor to that. So now that there's no longer sort of the overwhelming death ball of this, I mean, you're still going to be able to mass up CA quite well with this new bonus here, but the Hittite Chariot Archers shouldn't feel as overwhelming as before, and so we felt we could revert this change back again. Macedonians, just a couple of tweaks here. I put my Macedonians as my worst civ in the tier list here. So we were thinking maybe doing a few more changes to the Macedonians. One of the things we were discussing was maybe if we should give Macedonians nobility or not, just to make it feel like they have a few more units to play with. But we didn't want to change the civ identity too much. So what we decided to go is just lean into the infantry aspect here. So the Academy upgrade, the Pierce Armor upgrade that only affects Academy units, we've now changed this to affect Barracks units as well, not including the Slinger, so just the melee infantry units essentially. And this now starts in the Tool Age, so we get +1 in the Tool Age, so your axes will get an extra +1, which won't affect, obviously, the Slinger being nerfed now in terms of its attack, so it won't make a difference there, but it will mean your axes will be more resilient to bowman fire and watchtower fire. Excuse me, sorry. And then this is a buff in the Bronze Age again as well, so your hoplites are going to get +2 instead of +1 in the Bronze Age there, as well as your early swordsman line units. And in it goes up to +3 in Iron Age, but to counter, sort of like balance this out a bit, we have removed Tower Shield. So what this means is that your Centurions in the Iron Age with all upgrades will have the same maximum pierce armor now as they did before. So essentially what this change is basically doing is it's essentially you're getting Tower Shield for free in the Tool Age now, if that makes sense. Obviously, Macedonians don't actually get their swordsman upgraded, so they're limited to the Bronze Age infantry, but possibly with this bonus applying to them still in the Iron Age, maybe that will make that unit actually still feel like a good way of like absorbing arrow fire and make them feel like, I don't know, like a sort of what do you call it, like a meat shield unit that you can use to absorb that arrow fire. Yep, so just a minor change. I think the biggest problem with Macedonians at the moment is that their Tool Age they just don't feel like they have any bonuses at all. Their extra line of sight range is like quite nice in the early game, but yeah, just a small military bonus in the Tool Age there, and then like a slight buff in the Bronze Age as well. So next up, Minoans. So obviously Minoans has been a bit of a problem on water maps specifically. They're just the top picked and often banned civ for water maps, and a lot of that obviously comes down to the discount bonuses. So this bonus here, this is actually not a change. All we've done here is for warships specifically, they just don't have a Stone Age bonus now, just because obviously you don't get warships in the Stone Age. The actual change here is all ships that are non-military naval units. I can just read the notes there, that would be easier. They're now a flat 10% cheaper. So previously in the Stone Age, it'd be 15%, and that ramp up. And so this applies to all non-military naval units, but obviously more specifically this is going to affect the fishing boat, and when you upgrade it, the fishing ship as well. I think this, if I would just pop this open, this shows you the cost. So yeah, you can see here the fishing ship is now going to cost a flat 45 wood, whereas before it was 43 down to 40 down to 38, 35. And it just means that that fish boom aspect for the Minoans is going to be a little bit more difficult to get going. It's still going to be very good because it's still 10% cheaper, and also your docks are cheaper as well. I argued that we maybe just literally just make it so this is completely removed and it's just warships, but we felt we didn't want to go too far too fast, so we're going to see how the Minoans go at these values for now. If we still think the Minoans are too strong, then I think we just sack this off and just have the bonus only apply to warships, and then that would free up like maybe be able to give like cheaper fishing ships as a bonus to another civ or something like that potentially. I've already revealed for the Persians, there's a new bonus to them. The problem with Persians, it feels at the moment, is they do have that quite strong early game if you can get the hunt gathered in, but into the sort of like as the Tool Age goes on, it just feels like they just fall off really, really fast. Their bonuses don't really do anything in the Bronze Age. You have the faster working stable, but you don't have any like other bonuses to reinforce that. They're still okay on hybrid maps where you can lean into their faster firing scout ship line. But we've added this new bonus of storage pit techs now no longer cost gold. So this change does not affect the Tool Age, because obviously nothing costs gold in the Tool Age. So we didn't want to increase the early game power of the Persians, because that's already where they're good. But what this does means is they'll be able to save quite a few resources in the later phases of the game if they're using those storage pit techs, because Persians do get access to all the storage pit techs there. So I've put here that like overall total savings they can get is where's my numbers here? It's quite a large saving, actually. It's 1,350 gold total, but bear in mind that's if you literally get all of the techs. You're still having to pay the food cost for the techs. So, like, in terms of the actual gameplay effect, usually, like, normally Persians usually go for cavalry in the early Bronze Age. So you're saving there on metalworking and the scale armor for cavalry, and that's a saving of 170 gold. So, like, if you buy every tech, then it sounds like the bonus is really mad, but that's if you're buying every tech, which you don't usually do every game. What this does do is Persians are another civ that gets access to the legionary, and it means a lot of the upgrades for that legionary unit are going to be a lot more accessible now. So we're hoping that that's a unit that the Persians can lean into now a little bit more, because at the moment it just feels like Persians get to the if the game gets to the Bronze Age, it just feels like Persians' options are a bit too limited. So we wanted to like open the tech tree up a little bit more for them, as well as Persians just being a gold civ as well. This means it's going to free up a little more gold for them to play with, and we'll see how that goes for them there. Shang, so yeah, obviously a bit like Minoans, Shang has just been, well, Minoans specifically on water maps, but Shang on other maps has basically just been the best civ in the game for forever. And that's majorly down to the villager costing 40 food. And we finally decided that it's sort of enough's enough, and we're going to put that hammer down on that, and we changed the bonus so that villagers just cost 45 food now. We have given back the 40 food, so Shang will now start with the regular 200 food start as every other civ. So actually, technically, this is a buff for the very start of the game, but only for the first few bits. Just to put this into context, if you were going for a regular sort of 20 villager tool age, previously you'd be saving 10 food per villager. You start on 3 villagers, so you're making 17 vills. So that's 170 food you were saving, minus the 40 that you lost at the start, so 130. With the change to it now, the new change will be 17 times 5, so that's 85, sorry. So instead of 130 food, you're saving 85 food. So it's still you're still going to have a very strong early game bonus, and that's still going to last into the rest of the game there. It's just not going to be as strong now. To help them out a little bit more in the late game, we sort of buffed up the cavalry line attack speed bonus. This 10% felt a little bit underwhelming anyway. Like if you compare this to like the faster attacking archer bonus that the Assyrians have, for example, 10% feels a bit small. So, but we've potentially this could be more, but we decided to just buff it by just a small amount for now and just see how it goes. We still think Shang is going to be a very good early game civ. We are maybe slightly concerned that they feel a little bit too plain from the Bronze Age onwards. So that's something that we are going to be monitoring there. And the wall bonus there, we just felt like the 60% bonus is a little bit too much. Walls have been reduced a little bit down there. And yeah, so obviously this is going to be quite a large change to the Shang, but again, I think they're still going to be very strong in the earlier phases of the game. It's just more the later phases of the game. We're going to try and keep an eye on that and see how that's going for the Shang there, see if they maybe need some improvements there. But I think this change here specifically has been a long time coming, and yeah, hopefully you guys agree with that. Sumerians, we've done quite a new bonus here, which is going to be quite impactful, I think. So we've decided, because Sumerians, to me, they feel like quite a boring civ. They're very slow in the early game, and they have some okay bonuses in the late game, but it's like feels like it takes them too long to get there. So we've given them a new, quite strong bonus of aging up costing 10% less. So overall, this doesn't actually save a huge number of resources. It's I've written the number down here. It's 230 food and 80 gold that you save in total. So it's only like about 300 resources total. But the very important part of this is obviously that the tool age is going to be 50 food cheaper, which does mean the Sumerians are going to be able to get to that tool age a little bit quicker now, and that's going to make them should make them quite a lot more competitive on a lot of maps. Sumerians was a civ that was basically never being picked, and basically this bonus is just trying to encourage the civ to try and get up those ages to get to their better bonuses and techs and stuff, just so they're not like a little bit too overbearing. We have knocked the catapult, the stone thrower line bonus a little bit down, just because we don't want them to be just like Bronze Age rushing and then just demolishing people with catapults and stuff like that. 45%, a bit like I was saying, 10% felt a little bit too low. 45% felt very high for this bonus here. So yeah, that's just sort of like temper out the late game, just in case this bonus ends up being a little bit too strong. And so I think, yeah, that brings us to the end of the video. Or the changes, I should say. I need to wrap up I'm not just going to cut it off there. So yeah, like I said, the major points of the patch is sort of the tool age balance, the Slinger being put in its place of doing the job it's supposed to do, the Axeman being a little bit more potentially viable again in the early game, especially with the 10% faster villagers bonus being removed, as well as, like I said, the sort of swordsman line feeling a lot more appealing to a lot more civilizations there. There's also quite a few civ changes, but I think most of these aren't anything too outrageous. I think maybe the most contentious thing will probably be the Hittites change on here, but I think most players would agree that this bonus is a bit too game warping, and hopefully that they agree with what we've done there. And yeah, like I said, some buffs to some of the weaker civs, and yeah, we'll see how we want to hopefully see you guys play some games with the new patch and give us your feedback, and we'll see how it goes there. And maybe we'll see a new event or something in the new year if some activity picks up again and interest is there again. And yeah, there we go. That'll wrap it up, I guess. So thanks for watching. Like I said, I just wanted to explain the reasoning behind a lot of the changes here. And again, like I said, we look forward to hearing your feedback and hopefully see you guys soon. Goodbye.